In 1320, a medieval Italian poet sat down and wrote the most detailed description of a planetary catastrophe in human history. He described a massive object falling from the sky at unimaginable speed, slamming into the southern hemisphere of the Earth with such force that it punched a hole through the planet's crust, displacing rock, water, and land in a chain reaction that reshaped the entire globe. He described the impact zone as a vast, funnel-shaped pit, a cone that narrowed through 9 concentric rings, descending deeper and deeper into the Earth until it reached the frozen core of the planet itself. Around the rim, the terrain was scarred into terraces. At the bottom, everything was still, cold, dead. He described the shockwave pushing land upward on the opposite side of the planet, forming a towering mountain that rose from the ocean. He described the displacement of water and the restructuring of continents. He described effects that planetary scientists would not formally articulate for another 500 years. The poet's name was Dante Alighieri. The object he described falling from the sky was Satan, and the pit it created was hell. For 7 centuries, scholars read Dante's Inferno as a theological allegory, a spiritual journey through sin and punishment. But in May 2026, a researcher named Timothy Burberry from Marshall University in West Virginia presented a paper at the European Geosciences Union General Assembly in Vienna that proposed something extraordinary. Dante's Inferno is not just a poem about morality. It is a remarkably accurate description of a catastrophic asteroid impact, written nearly 500 years before modern science understood how asteroids work. And when you compare the geometry of Dante's hell to the structure of real impact craters, the parallels are stunning.
Let us start with what Dante actually wrote. In the Inferno, the first part of his masterwork, the Divine Comedy, Dante describes a journey through hell guided by the Roman poet Virgil. Hell is located beneath the city of Jerusalem, and it takes the shape of an enormous inverted cone, like a funnel drilled into the earth. This cone is divided into 9 concentric circles, each one narrower and deeper than the last. At the very bottom, trapped in a frozen lake called Cocytus, sits Satan himself, a massive, 3-headed figure locked in ice at the geometric center of the earth. According to Dante, this structure was created when God cast Satan out of heaven. Satan fell like a meteor, a massive body hurtling through space at terminal velocity, and struck the southern hemisphere with enough force to bore through the crust, the mantle, and all the way to the Earth's core. The impact was so violent that the land recoiled. On the opposite side of the planet, the displaced rock pushed upward from the ocean, forming the mountain of Purgatory, a towering peak surrounded by water, the only landmass in the southern hemisphere. Now here is where Burberry's analysis gets remarkable. He compared this description, point by point, to what modern planetary science knows about large impact events. When a sufficiently massive asteroid hits a rocky planet, it creates what scientists call a complex impact crater. These craters are not simple bowls. They have terraced walls that collapse inward in concentric rings, like a stadium with multiple levels. They have a central peak or peak ring, formed when the rock at the impact point rebounds upward after being compressed. And they can be so large that the surrounding landscape is permanently reshaped. The most famous example is the Chicxulub crater, the 180-kilometer-wide scar buried beneath the Gulf of Mexico, created 66 million years ago by the asteroid that ended the age of the dinosaurs. Chicxulub has concentric ring structures. It has a central peak ring formed by the rebound of deep crustal rock. It displaced enough material to trigger tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanic activity across the entire planet. And its geometry, a terraced, funnel-shaped depression narrowing toward a center, matches Dante's description of hell almost exactly. The 9 circles, the terraced walls, the narrowing cone, the frozen center, the displaced land on the other side of the planet. Dante described the anatomy of a complex impact crater 5 centuries before the first one was identified. But how is this possible? How could a 14th century poet with no telescopes, no satellites, and no knowledge of meteoritics describe something so precisely? Burberry argues that Dante was not guessing. He was applying the best science available in his time and doing it brilliantly. Dante was deeply educated in the natural philosophy of his era. He studied Aristotle extensively. He drew on the work of Arabic scholars who had preserved and expanded classical Greek science during the Islamic Golden Age. He understood physics, geometry, and cosmology at the highest level available in medieval Europe. When Dante imagined Satan's fall, he did not imagine a gentle spiritual descent. He imagined it as a physical event, a massive body falling at extreme speed and hitting the planet with catastrophic force. He then worked through the logical consequences. What would the impact zone look like? A funnel-shaped depression with concentric rings. What would happen to the displaced material? It would push up on the other side of the planet. What would happen at the center? Everything would be crushed, compressed, frozen into stillness. He treated it as what Burberry calls a thought experiment in impact physics, a mental simulation of what would happen if a celestial body struck the Earth. And his simulation, remarkably, produced results that align with what modern science has confirmed through decades of research. The study does not claim that Dante knew about asteroids. He clearly did not. What it claims is that Dante's rigorous application of medieval physics to a mythological event produced a description that accidentally anticipates modern meteoritics by 500 years. He got the geometry right. He got the physics right. He got the planetary scale consequences right. All from pure logic and imagination. And there is one more layer to this story. Most ancient and medieval descriptions of the heavens portrayed space as perfect, harmonious, and unchanging. The stars were eternal. The celestial realm was divine. Nothing up there could threaten anything down here. Dante was one of the first writers in history to portray the heavens as physically dangerous, a place from which something massive and destructive could fall. Today, NASA spends millions on planetary defense programs like the DART mission, which in 2022 successfully altered the course of an asteroid for the first time. Burberry sees a direct line from Dante's vision to modern efforts to protect the Earth from impacts. The medieval poet who imagined a devil falling from the sky essentially imagined the scenario that now drives real-world space programs. 700 years ago, a poet looked up at the sky and imagined the worst thing that could fall from it. He described the impact with such precision that modern scientists now study his poem alongside geological data. He did not have telescopes. He did not have computers. He had only his mind, his education, and his relentless need to understand how the universe works. And he got it right. This has been The Odd Vault. If this unlocked something in your mind, subscribe, because we open a new vault every week. What they didn't tell you, we will.